Welcome back to Radical Health, y'all. I'm your host, Seth, and I'm extremely honored you chose to listen to this podcast when there are about 10 million other podcasts you can choose instead. I promise to deliver you the best underground health inspiration and information to empower you to make the best decisions for yourself. And today we're honored to have with us a man who embodies radical health. He's transmuted a violent and traumatic upbringing, having been raised in what he called a foster home from hell, and living on the streets, addicted to drugs, in and out of jail. He's transmuted all of that into a success story. He's now 24 years sober, an accomplished Ironman triathlete, doing it all on a whole food, plant-based diet, I may add. He's a spiritual warrior devoted to service to others, offering free food programs for hungry people in New York. He's the author of 4 books, The Evolution of a Cro-Magnon. No? How many books?
6 books, bro.
He's the author of 6 books, including...
About to put out the 7th.
We're going to get into that, brother. Evolution of a Cro-Magnon, Meat is for Pussies, The PMA Effect, Destroying Monsters, and more. He's the singer of the punk band Blood Clot, formerly the Cro-Mags. One of my favorite aspects of today's guest is how he righteously calls out hypocrisy of the so-called punk scene when bands rolled over and complied with tyrannical medical apartheid government mandates. We're going to try to get it all in today, so let's see where this goes. John Joseph, welcome to Radical Health. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, brother. Finally making this happen.
Yeah, love it. And I want to get into what's been going on since 2020, that fateful year. But I think we should set the stage a little bit, go back in time a little further. And if people want to hear your full story, they can read your autobiography, your memoir, The Evolution of a Cro-Magnon, or they can watch any number of your podcast appearances on Joe Rogan, Rich Roll, London Real. But going back to the 1970s, you came up in New York in a foster home facing all sorts of abuse. And I don't want to dwell on this part of your life, but I think there's some inspiration to be gleaned here. Yeah. What were some of the methods you used to cope with such an abusive reality as a child?
Just music, man, and laughter, like I'm actually writing a film about what we went through. Like they made us live in this garage, and we were there for almost 6 years. We never got to eat with the family. Like it was just, basically they were getting paid for all these foster kids and, but the thing that got us through, we had this little round TV, like what they had in the 70s. And this was like 72, 73. So we would watch Soul Train and Dance Around or all the little TV shows. And we would live in this imaginary world. And then I had a little AM radio, the little ones with the earpiece. And, I would just block all that out. And then it was just, we had to laugh at the situations. It was like they were starving us. And then we had to figure out, like they would literally feed us Oreo spit sandwiches. She didn't like the filling, so she would scrape it off in her teeth and spit it in a bowl and put it on green molded bread and serve us that with tea. Or we had to steal the dog's food, or, then we just developed ways to like scam to get food, like walking up and down the aisles of a supermarket, just eating. This was before there was cameras or anything like that. So and then we would go to the register and pay for like a 2-cent piece of bazooka, bubble gum. Or just found out where they were keeping the money, and we started stealing the money back from them that they were getting for us. And it was just, it was always music and like a sense of humor really was what saved us to go through that hell as kids. And then, there was other fucked up things happening to us that, whatever. I talk about it in my memoir. All types of abuse. And that's what got us through, man. And like everything that we had related, because we never got to go hang out with kids. We were like the freaks of the neighborhood. So like we had to create a whole little fantasy world for ourselves and relate it to like TV shows of the 70s. It was crazy, like we would quote lines from you know, like popular TV shows back in the day, like The Partridge Family or fucking Starsky and Hutch or whatever. It was like it was it was wild.
Yeah, man, that sounds wild. And levity and humor is a great way to keep it light, keep things moving in tough times. And obviously, so is music. That's a huge part of your life. It's a huge part of my life as well. And you cite meeting the Bad Brains as a pivotal time in your life because not only were they a super tight thrash punk band, they were black. That was just kind of unheard of in the early '80s. But also they were Rastafarian, and so they preached a certain
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Well, when I met them, they had just started getting into that, but they actually started. I think the first stuff they were doing was 76 or 77, and it was like fusion. Like they were into like Return to Forever and Mahavishnu. Like they were super talented. I still to this day regret that it was at the end of 80. And Doc, I was staying with them at the studio in New York, and Doc was like, yo, I'm going to see RTF at the Palladium. And I was like, I just didn't get it at that point, Return to Forever, Chicoria, Al Di Meola, Lenny White, and who the hell was the other dude?
John McLaughlin?
No, John McLaughlin was Mahavishnu. Yeah, so it
Oh,
was
that's
like
right.
those guys were just like he played me Romantic Warrior, and it just went over my head. But now I'm like, damn. But yeah, and then they got into the punk stuff because of the Pistols and the Ramones. I mean, they got their name Bad Brains from a Ramones song, Bad Brains, and it's just wild because in '77 I was seeing the Ramones hanging out on Rockaway Beach, and then saw them play at CB's that same year, that spring, um, and yeah, but I was a mess. Like I had just got out of incarceration 2 years in like the worst juvenile halls in New York State. I was in Spa for 3 months, and then I went upstate for over 20 months in like Lincolndale, which was like attempted murder on down, fighting fucking every day. Spofford, like the cops that took me to Spofford from Kew Gardens said that the last white kid they brought there got stabbed to death. And so it was like you had a target on you from the moment I walked in Spofford. The first night up in the unit B3, somebody tried to get stupid with me and I had to put a chair over their head, and then I just walked over to his friend and banged him out too. So then that was day one. So it was like all of that craziness. And then I went into the service and I was a drug addict. But, my mom, when I got out of lockup, she's like, you guys can't stay here. I mean, we didn't really have a plan or fucking nothing, no college, nothing like that. We got out of lockup right back onto the streets. And I started hanging with the dope dealers again. And, I was a heroin mule in the 70s, and then I hooked up with these dudes on 116, and I was holding he's like, yo, hold this bundle for me, which is like 10 bags of heroin. And they would send people over to me. So the DTs, the detectives chased me, and I threw the shit, but they still charged me. And then I was looking at, possession with intent to sell of a controlled felony substance. And so then it was like go into the military or, my brother always has that saying, the state didn't raise no fool, because that's who raised us, really. My mom was almost beaten to death. They had her on pain, barbiturates and speed at the same time back then, like suicidal. I mean, we went on one home visit from the foster home, and she was trying to kill herself. We had to call my uncle. Like she just, the woman was physically abused beyond like So when I went into the service, I was a mess. I went and I was already into punk rock, so there was a punk club 1980 in Norfolk called the Taj Mahal, and I started going there, seeing bands there, and the King's Head Inn had bands. But I was also into like rock. I went to see Frank Zappa and the Mothers in 1980 at Old Dominion University over there on Hampton Boulevard. And, I was still going to New York and going to the clubs, Max's and all that. But I started uh, realizing that I could smuggle drugs very easily in the military, because you would go to Florida, there was no dogs. So it was like no, or go to Jamaica, there was no customs and border patrol. So if I just found out from one of the dudes when they were bringing the dogs on the ship, I just slide them some money. So I brought back weed, pills, whatever, and I had a drug business going in Norfolk. And then but I met the Bad Brains simultaneously. It was wild. And that HR, they had just started becoming Rastafari. Like like if you see the old videos of them in '79, because I met them in the spring of '80, and this guy named Ray Dredd, who was from Jamaica, started getting them into the Rastafarian lifestyle. And they had a farm in Herndon and down there by in Virginia. So like they started getting into that. So when I met HR and the Bad Brains, I sold their manager acid that night, and then like was hanging out with them. And HR was talking about PMA and all this. And then I went to Jamaica. I brought back like 3 pounds of weed. I smuggled it. I was a garbage pail of drugs. And then somebody set me up with these undercover cops in Norfolk. So I went to do a drug deal at the King's Head Inn. And with these biker dudes, it was like pills, coke, acid, whatever. And then I did the deal. I go in the club, and then the next thing I know, on the floor, fucking 10 cops come rushing in with guns. Get on the floor, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm in the military. So, they were looking to give me some serious time. And just, it wasn't to be. Like some crazy stuff happened. I had to get medevaced off of the ship. They kept me locked up on the ship till my civilian court case came. And the ship started getting underway, going to Bermuda and all this, and then Puerto Rico. And then I had some infection in my jaw from a wisdom teeth being pulled. So they was going toward all the way down to the tip, Argentina. So as we got like one day underway, they had to they had to medevac me off the ship. So they sent a helicopter from PR, came from Roosevelt Roads, landed on the back of my ship. I was on a CGN with it. It had a helo deck, and then refueled, picked me up, took me back to Roosevelt Roads, and forgot to say that I'm supposed to be handcuffed to the bed. It was before computers. So after I did the IV and all that, they're like, well, your ship just said to keep you here and send you back to Norfolk. They didn't say this guy is supposed to be in the brig. So they gave me my ID. I went back to Norfolk, hung out a few days, and then split and went up to D.C. and was staying with Henry Rollins and Ian Mackay for about a week. And then I just split back to New York. And one of the first people I see when I got out, I saw the Undead. Bobby Steele was in the original Misfits, the guitar player, and he's had this band, the Undead, and they played at the 930 Club in D.C. And I saw the New York license plate, and I was like, yo, do you live in New York? They're like, yeah, we're going back there. I was like, yo, can I get a ride with you? I'm from New York. So they gave me a ride. I get out of the van, and the first person I run into is fucking HR on Avenue A at their studio. And then that was just the catalyst for all the change, Turned
That's amazing.
plant-based, started going to yoga classes. This was early 81. And they
How
gave
unheard of it. Sorry to interrupt, but how common was it for anyone to be plant based in the early
not
80s?
nobody was. Nobody was. Like they were into the ITAL diet, and then I got into raw foods in 81. Like sprouting and fucking growing my own, because their sound man J.W. Lee, who was the original guitar player for Blood Clot, he was their producer on their first album. He owned the studio and he was into raw food, so he gave me like Victoria's Kovinskis book, and then I got a job at Prana Foods, which was connected to Integral Yoga Institute. It's like 6 degrees of separation, all this shit. So then I started going over there and working in the kitchen, and I got free yoga classes, and then I got to go to any seminar. So Victoria's Kovinskis gave a class with the people from Hippocrates Health Center, Swami Satchidananda, and then I was going to any spiritual thing I could see, Sri Chinmoy, whatever. I just started reading all these books, Gurdjieff, The Way, Ram Dass. And then the guy at the health food store was in a famous punk rock band called The Dots, Vinnie Signorelli. He was the drummer. And then he was also in The Unsane. That was his last band. And then he's like, yo, we just start talking philosophy. And he was like, he goes, so what's God? I said, God's energy. And then he was like, no, man, God is a person, man. God has form just like God has energy too, but that energy comes from, it's not formless. There's actually the supreme personality of Godhead and an eternal manifestation and Krishna. And then I was like, wow, man. So I started going to the Krishna temple, and then the beginning of 82, I just went all in, stopped playing music, and became a monk for 2 years. And that's pretty much. And then when 81, I was singing with Cro-Mags and Blood Clot. And Cro-Mag shit fell apart. One of the members was being an asshole, so nobody could deal with him. And then I just did Blood Clot, and we toured. We opened up for the Bad Brains on their southern tour. And then when I came back to New York, I was just like, because I started chanting and everything, and I was like, man, I feel so good doing this. I want to jump all in and become a monk, and that's what I did. And then when I left the temple, I rejoined the Cro-Mags and did Age of Quarrel and, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Cool. It's interesting, like the whole Bad Brains connection and how they were so pivotal. And the fact that they were into fusion, like you can really tell because they fused reggae music with thrash punk, and even the guitar solos, you can tell how technically great like he was. And I mean, that band was huge for me too, because it just sort of broke down all these walls. And I want to know, like, you've expressed that you're sort of against labels, you don't really call yourself a vegan. And so what I want to know is,
I never do.
Okay. I mean, that's great because it comes with all this baggage and connotations. And even the word punk, I think, has like baggage to it. But what I like about punk, musically speaking, is that you don't have to be super good at an instrument or like very musically talented to play in a band.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there because that's been the problem. Now you get all these people that are like, yo, everybody has to be in a band. And I'm sorry, but it wasn't like that back in the day. And the thing about the Bad Brains was their changes, when you listen to how they would fucking fly through a song, stop on a dime and stop and go
tight.
back. It's like, dude, they're incredible musicians. Very few people, the bands that were around, them dudes could all play. Right? Minor Threat, like accomplished musicians, right? All the stuff from the West Coast, Black Flag, all this stuff. Like people used to be able to play, and then all of a sudden, I think, seemed like in the 90s, everything became formulated. Everybody's like, fucking, I could sing any kind of music, man. As a matter of fact, I sent a thing of me to the Spinners singing Rubber Band Man. They like that shit so much they put it on their page. Like, yo, check this dude out. Get the fuck out. Like, yo. So I studied voice under Don Lawrence and Greg Drew and tried and always trained and wanted to become a better musician. And people, you would see Doc always practicing scales and like learning shit and listening to shit, and Daryl and all of them. And musicians actually gave a fuck. And then it's like the 90s came and everybody had to be in a band. It was like, the Long Island Jocks. Yo, there's this music like hardcore and like it's just like a couple of notes and you just scream over it. And that's why I don't listen to 99.9% of the shit that comes out these days. It all sounds the same. I'm sorry. That's not shit. Like even the dudes in the cro-mags, Harley, Paris, Mackey, fucking incredible players. Doug Holland, incredible musicians.
Totally.
And then you had bands that didn't even write any, I'm not going to mention their name, but they're one of the biggest hardcore bands out of New York. They never even wrote any of their albums. The guitar player was never even fucking plugged in for years. It's like, I don't know, man. The shit leveled off. And I would rather hear some kids like Turnstile or whatever the fuck doing some shit that's creative and different,
right,
than to just have the same regurgitated fucking 3 notes over and over with some fucking oomph fucking dude like fucking screaming over it. I would never put one of those records on. I grew up listening to like classical fucking music and R&B and soul and the best fucking music on the face of the earth. And I don't mean it as a dig to people, but I mean, hey, if I wrote that shit on Facebook this morning, study your craft and try to improve in your craft. You don't see that anymore because most of these people are not musicians. They're just fucking playing their few notes that they have and how many different ways you can play those notes. And, I'm not saying it's everybody. There is some people in hardcore and punk these days that can fucking play. But I think a majority of it, I would have to say, is them dudes ain't trying to. Mackie would even say it too, the cro-mag drummer. Like if he would see a dude that could actually play bass, like I was in a band with Nick Oliveri and Joey Castillo from Queens of the Stone Age. Those dudes are like accomplished musicians. And then we had Todd Youth, the late Todd Youth, playing guitar. He played with everybody from Glenn Campbell to Motorhead to fucking, dude, like
right.
It was like the guy could fucking play anything.
Yeah. And my point wasn't that like you don't need to be a musician to play punk. My point was more like what you needed was a feeling, and that the energy of like rebellion, righteousness, truth, I think has a huge part to do with punk rock. But like the fun and adrenaline and energy, those are some of the energies I think is needed to embody punk. But my question for you, John, for you is, what is punk to you? Like, how would you sum up that term?
I just think, hey, man, express yourself however you want to do it. I do it through aggressive music. But, look what punk rock and all that shit and hardcore, they fucking shit the bed over the last 4 years. So the lady up the road that decided to fucking stand up to the government and grows her own organic vegetables, to me, is punk rock. That's punk rock.
Yes.
Fucking, that's punk rock to me. And punk rock has been homogenized and bought up for major consumption in the United States. Punk rock, I'm writing my next book is all about that. It's about the fucking how the whole shit lost its vibe. And motherfuckers could say whatever they want. I don't really give a fuck. Oh, yeah, you're just old and whatever. But I was there the summer of punk 77, going to see punk shows. The message to me and the message behind Bad Brains, it's great. There is that thing of just this pureness that existed back then of guys just and girls too. You had fucking, I'm friends with Chrissy Hines from the Pretenders, and fucking, I saw Susie and the Banshees in 1980. There was, you know, X-Ray Specs and fucking, oh, bondage, up yours. Like, there was so much great fucking music, and everybody sounded different, right? Nobody, it wasn't this whole, like, if I go to a show now, every fucking band there'll be 7 bands that all sound the same. And it was never like that. You had the Angry Samoans, Bad Brains, Circle Jerks, and Black Flag on a show, right? Every fucking one of them, or Flipper, or fucking any one of them bands, all Dead Kennedys, all different stylistically. They didn't try to copy each other, right? It's one thing to be inspired by somebody. It's another thing to like bite their shit and fucking sound exactly like them. And that's why the shit stopped growing. But there was this whole second wave of hardcore, like Orange 9mm and Quicksand, right? And them type bands, and they could fucking play. And they started doing some other stylistic shit, the Deftones, right? Good, great musicians, keeping it hard. What's his name? The singer from Deftones, Chino's fucking favorite singer is HR. Same as me. And you know, when that first Deftones record, Above the Fur or whatever, came up, I was like, yo, these guys are fucking badass. So it's been an evolution, and some people just they got, you know, stuck at that Neanderthal stage. They didn't fucking, you know, it's one thing to express yourself, and I get that, but, you know, for the shit to grow, people have to become better musicians and more into finding their own style and voice. That's what cro-mags did. Cro-mags, we weren't like any other band, right? We just had our own sound. We did our thing. That's my 2 cents. People could say whatever, but, and you know, and I think like message wise, it doesn't even matter anymore now. After what I just seen punk and hardcore do in the last 4 years, I'm like, y'all motherfuckers ain't about nothing for the most part. Because like I said, there was 3 types of individuals. There was the person who drank the Kool-Aid and was all in and fucking shitting on everybody that didn't comply with what the government was doing. Then you had the other bands that knew the shit was fucked up but didn't say anything because they didn't want to get canceled and lose money. That's also bullshit. And there was the last group of musicians, and I can count the bands on fucking one hand of that stood up. And I think I stood up more than anybody in punk and hardcore throughout the fucking world. And I caught the slack for it. And fast forward now, everything that I was saying turned out to be the fucking truth. And they tried to destroy my career and everything else. And nobody's said, hey, man, sorry about that. I was wrong. All the press, because I did the free concert, 3,500 people during the lockdowns. I helped organize. I fucking called out Dave Grohl, called him the Flu Pfizers for playing the fucking Vax Live show and taking millions of dollars to push that shit and then he goes and plays Bad Brains songs. And they slag me in every NME in London, fucking the Rolling Stone, all the fucking online, Lambgo, you name it. Every online publication talked shit on me, called me, oh, the former singer of cro-mags, conspiracy theorist, this, that, the other thing. And now I'm like, yo, you guys want to circle back and do a fucking interview? Now that crickets from every one of them. It's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be not admit it. And there's even some motherfuckers that's double down on like, you know, it was safe and effective and it saved millions of lives. And Anthony Fauci's a great person. That's real fucking punk rock. But
right.
You know, there was bands that kicked people out. You know, I never liked the Offspring anyway, but fucking they kicked Pete Parada, the drummer, out of the band. And then he went and did the new band with Dickie from Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and then you had Al Barr from Dropkick Murphys, and like that whole band was like pro-vax, and like when they found out he left initially to take care of his mother who had a stroke, and then they, when like because he didn't take the shots, they were like, oh yeah, we have to travel in separate vehicles and all this shit, and then they just were like, fuck this guy. So, and then there was bands like Terror, who's supposed to be, ooh, scary, Terror. Guy who's on stage running around like a maniac, fired the bass player for not taking it. Like, I was hearing all the fucking stories of the bands, of the members of the bands that didn't want to take the shit, were telling me what the fuck the bands were doing to them. So, I'm doing another record, and I'm like, fucking hasta la vista. I got other shit going on in my life. If I do shows, whatever. But I helped start that fucking scene. I'm one of the pioneers of hardcore, fucking hands down, from 1980 on. The shit went off the rails. And I always said there's going to be an event that's going to test everybody for who the fuck they are. And then we saw it happen. Right?
Yeah.
And then, I'm not saying it was everybody, but it was a lot of the ones who stood up were the exception rather than the rule. I give them props for doing it, but
Absolutely, man. I was on a tour. Well, I was supposed to be on a tour, August 2021, playing bass, and I said, I'd love to play with you. I don't do vaccines and I don't do the mask. And you're fired. Immediately I was fired off the tour, out of the band. He was super pissed, but I didn't care.
What band?
It was called the Glenn David Andrews Band from New Orleans. It wasn't a punk band. He's like blues, gospel, funk, R&B.
That's cool. I would listen to gospel and blues and all that.
Oh, dude, he's one of the greatest singers in New Orleans. He was amazing. And, it was a really tough time. It was a really tough time. We definitely were all put to the test. This was a time where Eric Clapton became more punk than Rage Against the Machine.
And all Eric Clapton talked about was the injuries that he had, the paralysis to his hand.
Because he still got it, right.
After he fucking took the shots. And everybody, Neil Young, I can't even listen to his shit anymore. And then Rolling Stone, which is a sellout fucking magazine, did a hit piece on Eric Clapton, of all people. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, and one of the only few hardcore punk bands, that I saw at the time saying, "Hey, we cannot, in good conscience, play for a room full of people with these cards, with these freedom passports," and that was Madball. So I got respect for them too.
Yeah, Madball played the show in the park with us, and Madball fucking stood up and were like, "Yo, why do you care what somebody else does? Fucking live your life and shut the fuck up, man." Like, right. If you don't take the medicine, my medicine doesn't work. Like, everything they programmed into people, you could be sick and not know it. I'm like, I'm out there riding 90 miles training for an Ironman and posted a photo at the end of 2020, and motherfuckers like shit the bed. Like, what are you doing? You're selfish. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that if I was sick, I wouldn't be able to ride 90 fucking miles today. So shut up.
Yeah, and not to mention that, like, now here we are 4 or 5 years later, we're completely validated because the government came out with a after action review of the entire, few years of the pandemic, quote unquote. They called it Lessons Learned and the Path Forward. And they concluded that the entire response of the health organization was an abject failure, that the lockdowns, masking, social distancing, coercion that all took place was not only unscientific, but it would cause significant and immeasurable psychological, physiological, economic harm.
And who said that there was no fucking... And it was Fauci himself who admitted, like, yeah, we just came up with this shit. There's no science. Like the footsteps on the fucking floor. Like, go this way. Oh, you mean if I go the other way? Like, if I go against the footsteps, somebody's going to get... Like, dude, put your mask on when you enter the restaurant. When you sit down, take it off. When you got to go to the bathroom, put it back on. It was like they were fucking with everybody, like Simon Says. Like,
it was crazy.
Get out of here. Dude, I would walk down the streets of New York, never wore a fucking mask. And people would be like, like fucking like I was the creature from the Black Lagoon walking down First Avenue. Like, and one person took their kids and like moved them out of the way and was like, and I was like, that's a great example to teach your children to fear somebody because they're not. And the guy was like, shut the fuck up. It's my kids. I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. I feel sorry for them, man. So fuck you too. But it was just crazy. And everything we said, and then all the people that got silenced, right, and deplatformed, fucking Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, the creator of the mRNA, saying it's going to cause massive injuries and all the shit that they were saying. Now look what's happening, what's going on. I just read an article, 16 musicians right now are battling stage 4 cancer right out of the fucking blue. Every day I turn it on, some other person just passed away suddenly. It's just like, and you read the comments and it's like, condolences. And I'm like, yeah, but how about holding the people accountable that sold you that bullshit lie? And God forbid you said, hey, did that person, you got cancer, did you take the vaccine? Right? But everybody wanted to know our status when, now you're not allowed to ask, right? So you see the social engineering. That's what a psyop is. This guy was just on Rogan and he was discussing a psyop. And a psyop is there's only one narrative allowed and that's it. Anybody who questions anything gets fucking slammed and destroyed. It doesn't matter how much, and they're doing the same thing with the climate change bullshit. Oh, the chick from the CEO of Google was at the World Economic Forum talking about we own the narrative on climate change. Meanwhile, there's like 1,000 scientists that are like, it's bullshit. This is like to sell carbon credits and digital passports and just, it's about control. And getting back to punk rock, 40 fucking years ago when I got into the shit, if they tried to pull that shit back then, everybody would have stood up. Now it was like nobody stood up, and the ones that did got fucking, the whole scene turned on them, I don't play victim. I'm like, I'm a New Yorker. I said, you motherfuckers never would have survived a week in my shoes, what I went through in the 70s and 80s. You think you're going to talk shit about me online and I'm going to be all like, please, like, I'm like, bring it, motherfuckers. Let's go. Like, and that's why a lot of people wrote me and were like, yo, honestly, dude, you fucking helped me stay sane during the whole shit because you threw the middle finger up to these motherfuckers. My first page got deleted with almost 150,000 followers on it. They took that shit down. And funny enough, Joe was like, yo, I'm going to hook you up with somebody to find out what happened, right? Because my account just got zapped. And my phone rings and he's like, yeah, hello, John. And I was like, yeah, who's this? He's like, Kelly Slater.
Nice.
So he like knew the people at Instagram. So then they were like, oh, yeah, dude, they zapped your account for spreading false and misleading information, which is all turned out to be true now. But
yeah, man, it's crazy the way they have to control the narrative for a psyop for people to fall in line. And a big part of it was to convince everyone that the other person, that your community members are all biohazards, that anyone walking down the street can get you sick and kill your grandma. And that to me is one of the most evil things that we've seen in this generation. It was crazy.
Not only that, but not allowing you to see your fucking loved ones that were dying in the fucking hospital. Like that. Meanwhile, they were going to get their hair done and having fucking dinners and doing whatever the fuck they wanted. And that's what I tell people. Do you not see the joke that they put the masks on as soon as the cameras are off and they're still filming, they take the masks off? Are you fucking people stupid? You don't see what they're doing? Like, it was like mass formation psychosis. And I wrote this song called War Castles, and it was like mass formation psychosis all over the place. You're telling me I'm crazy, but it's right in your face. Truth never lies. Open your eyes. Why you sitting idle while they plan your demise? Like, that fucking record we put out, which we recorded snuck into studios during the pandemic, Souls from Blood Clot. Fucking dude.
Bro, that's a heavy album. That's a heavy album. And you have that Bad Brain song on there too.
Yeah, we covered How Low Can a Punk Get? Because I'm like, yeah, how low can a punk get? That's what that was the whole shit. We didn't give a fuck back in the day. We were the exception. See, that's the whole thing these new jacks don't understand. I don't give a fuck that you're all against me, because the world was against us in the 70s and early 80s. Mm-hmm. We were the outcasts of society. That's what attracted me to punk rock and hardcore. Like, now it's like the mainstream. Everybody has a fucking tattoo and this and that, and every band wears band t-shirts, and it's so fucking I don't know, man. I'm just like, to me, music is a beautiful thing. I always play music. I'm writing, we're gonna record these songs. I'm playing with really cool people, but like, they've been hitting me up to do the cro-mag reunion next year, 40 years. I'm like, not interested. Age of Quarrel turns 40, and they're trying to do like the original, and I'm like, not interested. I don't do shit for money. I don't jive with most of those dudes in that band. Although, I'm cool with the drummer and whatever, but the rest of them, and I just do my thing, man. I'm writing more books. I'm working on a one-man show, training for Iron Man. It's like, I'm so busy with everything. It's just like, it doesn't bother me that I'm not. People are like, how does it feel that you fucking got kicked out of the scene? I'm like, I didn't get kicked out of shit. Like, what are you talking about? Some fucking.
Yeah, plus, if you get kicked out of a place where everyone's like deluded, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you got kicked out of the nut house. Gee, fucking thank you. Hey, they threw you out of Bellevue. How do you feel about that? Like, yeah, that's a good point, bro.
How many Ironmans have you done?
14 fulls. Did a 70.3, bunch of Olympic, which was this one. This was a hard race, man. Malibu, the water was really fucked up that day, and the bike was. Yes, and then I've done some Olympic distance and then marathons. So, I'm training for Chattanooga right now in September.
And how do you do all that without the animal protein?
Very easily.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's for people who know my show, they know that that's a joke. Like, you can get all you need from plants.
I'm about to turn 63, all right? So anybody out there wants, I'm not talking Cameron Hayes, obviously, or Goggins would smoke me, but most of the schmucks talking shit. There's this one guy, he's all fucking like plant-based diets, and he's always selling his fucking supplements and fucking raw meat. And I'm like, this fucking herb, David something or another. I said, motherfucker, you talk so much shit. I'll tell you what, put your fucking money where your mouth is. I won't even fucking crush you doing a full Ironman or even a half. Let's just do an Olympic distance triathlon. 0.9 mile swim, 25 ride, 6.2 mile run, and then we'll hit the weights, and then we'll get in the ring. All right? And let's see who the fuck's standing with all your bullshit that you talk. Like, he always points out the unhealthy. I was like, I'm not a vegan. I don't, like, they eat shit. Even the vegans sold out and injected all that shit, tested on animals, killed the animals, had fucking baby cow cells, fucking chimpanzee, human fetus cells in the shit, and they all fucking took it. I confronted one of the main ones. She's like, I won't mention her name, but she's a huge influencer. And I go, yo, how the fuck could you take that shit? And her exact words to me was, I never said I was the best vegan. So I don't call myself a vegan. I eat to fucking do what I do. It's not, I would call myself a devotee of Krishna before I call myself a fucking vegan. What does that mean anyway? And vegan just I love what Dr. Esselstyn says, vegan just tells me what you don't eat. It doesn't tell me what you eat. And they're eating all
Exactly.
kinds of shit. That's why when fucking stud motherfuckers look at them and they go, if that's what a vegan diet does to motherfuckers, I don't want nothing to do with it. And I even
Right.
wrote in Meat is for Pussies a chapter, Vegan, the 5-letter curse word, because they were so judgmental. And then they're eating all fucking shit. Like this next book I got coming out, Unfuck Your Health. There's no fake meat recipes, none of that shit. It's like the most thing I have is TVP, which is organic texturized, vegetable protein. So that's the extent of it. But
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I like when you were on Rogan and he said, oh, a lot of vegans aren't that healthy, and you stopped him right there, and you were like,
that was
stop.
the first fucking 5 minutes of the interview. I go, yo, there's a correct way to do this shit. It's a whole
Yeah.
food, plant-based diet, eating foods in their original form organically, not sprayed with a bunch of pesticides, not genetically modified. He goes, yeah, you're right. I love Joe. A lot of vegans were like, you should have fucking attacked him. I'm like,
No, you guys had a good
we
conversation.
had a good 3.5 hour. Look at the bear. What you boo? He's the rock star. All done.
Oh, I love your dog, man. Yeah, you post him on the Insta stories. Like,
Rottweiler pit bull, fucking the nicest guy you never want to fuck with.
and did you rescue him?
Yeah, my wife did. He was taken by this roster from somebody else that had him on a piece of wire tied to a radiator in the basement. And then he just was like, yeah, mom, we need to have our pit bull, man. And then the last dog he had, he kept him in the basement and it got into a bag of rat poison and fucking died, this little 6-month-old puppy. And then he was doing the same thing with him, keeping him in the fucking basement, and the guy ate a bag, like broke into a bag of cement and ate it and got sick. And so we just started taking care of him. And then Erica just got real. I was like, I don't want no fucking dog, like this and that. But then he was getting ready to sell him to fucking like drug dealers in Brooklyn. And we were like, yo, give us the fucking dog. And Erica put up the money that he was going to get from the drug dealers. And we just took the dog. And I was like, bro, he's coming upstairs. You live downstairs. You can see the dog every day. And it's been like fucking 7 years now. We rescued this dude, and he's just part of the family, dude. Like,
That's beautiful.
yeah, he's a fucking great dog, man. He gets so much love, and I could never imagine not if we didn't rescue him, like all the crazy good times we've had with this dude. It's just like. And we
Yeah.
did the right thing because he wouldn't be alive you see what those dudes do. They keep a dog, mistreat it, tie it to a fucking pole somewhere, and then the shelter gets it and it's a kill shelter. We're keeping this dog for 1 week and then it's, we're going to fucking put it down. So that's what would have happened to him, I'm sure. So, and I'm going to say one other thing. Looking in this dog's eyes made me more connected with animals, because I say that to people. Look in your dog's eyes and your cat's eyes and tell me there's not a soul there, right? And I just felt so much more compassion toward all the animals, man, because they're all sentient beings and we don't have don't come with your tough guy shit. I gotta fucking hunt. Go out in the fucking woods, not with arrows, not with a gun. Go out in the woods with a fucking knife and take down a bear or take down a fucking elk or whatever the fuck you want to hunt and see what happens to you. It's not like I see motherfuckers get murdered in front of me at 14 years old. I lived a world of violence. I said that on the back of Meat is for Pussies. I came out of fucking the most vile, fucking violent existence you could ever fucking imagine. The streets of New York in the 70s, the fucking lockups, the institutions, all the shit I've seen, the violent world. And HR was just like, man, you must let that go, man. When the minute you stop eating the flesh of the animal, every second the animal suffer, it goes into the flesh and the consciousness of that animal. And you're ingesting that. And then I saw that documentary Meat by Frederick Weissman. I don't know if you ever saw that. And he's
No.
not even vegan. There's not even any voiceover narration. He just takes you from the process all the way out in the field with the cows getting loaded into a truck and the whole shit. He's just filming them. And I got 200. Fucking auctioning them off. And then the kill line and how they fucking, dude, it was just so evil. And I saw that in 1980. So there wasn't a ton of documentaries that was out back then to talk about like not killing animals, but having this dog has just made me more in tune with just everything in nature and animals, and I'm not no fucking tree hugger. I'm like, yo, if you fuck with me, I'll still fucking punch you in the mouth. That's what got me on. Brian Callen was the one, the comedian was the one from The Fighter and the Kid. He goes, yo, you got to meet my friend John Joseph, bro. He'll fucking fucks people up. He just decided not to eat meat anymore. And then Joe hit me up and was like, yo, you want to come on the podcast? I was like, fuck yeah, dude, let's go. And, that's how it is. It doesn't make you weak and this fucking, like they love to use soy boy and all this shit. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, some of them motherfuckers, I would call them that shit too. But like making the conscious decision not to eat animals doesn't make you a weak person. It makes you strong to stand up when everybody else, when the status quo is like, you need meat, da 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 da, or, whatever it is. That's punk as fuck. Stand up against the status quo and say, nah, this is what I'm doing over here. And back then, there was maybe a few people in the punk scene that didn't eat meat, But I guess I took that shit to the next level.
No, that's great, man. And I totally agree that cutting out the consumption of animal flesh can connect you to nature, can connect you to all living beings. It can increase and expand your consciousness. And that's what happened to me when I stopped eating meat 4 years ago. And, it was late in the game for me, but better late than never, I think. That's right. And so really quick, let's talk about your books, because the only one that I've read in full is The PMA Effect. I thought it was great. I thought you offered a lot of great...
Rich Roll did the forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of great tools and techniques in there to just get your life back on track, from visualization to hanging out with...
One.
Cool. All right. So yeah, The PMA Effect. I like that. Tell me about Destroying Monsters.
Well, my brother was dying. We lost him the end of 2022. And it was a long fucking struggle with him and his addiction. And, and then myself with what I went through, even when I spun out for 2 years into fucking crack and freebase and robbing motherfuckers, and I had probably 3 or 4 TOSs put on me from drug gangs in New York, terminate on sight. I was a fucking madman. But even then, I never slipped up on my diet. Even when I was an addict, I stayed I would literally be up for 3-4 days freebasing and crack and fucking robbing motherfuckers with these hoodlums in New York. And then I'd be like, yo, let's go get some wheatgrass juice. And they would be like, bro, you don't need a juice bar. You need to be in fucking Bellevue with the shit that I just seen you do. But I wrote the book because I just felt I had a lot of wisdom to offer. Now that I'm, I got 24 years without a drink, smoke, nothing, right? And watching my brother go through that. Actually, he passed away right in the middle of me writing this book.
Heavy. Which
really tested me because, I loved my little brother, man. I don't know how many interventions I've done on him. The day before 9/11, I did an intervention on him, and then he was supposed to fly out on 9/11. I couldn't get him on a flight for 3 weeks. So he detoxed on my couch, just reliving all, when somebody detoxes off of drugs and alcohol, dude, it's not fucking pretty. every emotional fucking thing that person went through, and we had to relive all the childhood trauma and fucking everything, man. And it was fucking, that was one of the heaviest things I've ever had to do in my life. Meanwhile, watching the death and destruction in New York, and like having firefighter friends that were down there working on the pile, and the smell. I mean, I lived like less than 2 miles from ground zero, and you could just smell the burning flesh, and the asbestos was just all in the air, and it was just fucking so wild. And I always wanted to write a book on addiction. So the first half of the book is our story as a family with addiction, and all the stuff we went through. And then the second half is, these are the methods I use to stay clean and sober. This is what I do. This is what you can do every single day to fight, because back in the day, they used to call your drug habit the monster. Like, yo, that dude got the fucking 2 bundle a day monster. So that's why I was like, and just monsters meaning like all, I did a lot of research for the book too, and 85% of every addict was abused as a kid. So like it was a process of cleansing and like destroying those monsters that live rent free in our fucking heads, and can destroy you. So you got to choose what you want to do, and that's for me. Chanting Hare Krishna and the whole process of what Prabhupada taught was the cleansing process of. It's been a lifelong battle, and it ain't been easy, man. Like fucking, but the alternative is madness. So I put this book out. I dedicated, like when he died, I was going to write about our story later on. I ended up making that the second chapter in the book, and I was in Florida. He died up in New York. I couldn't get on a flight, nothing. So how did I process that grief? I stayed up. I got on my computer. I grieved, cried for fucking a couple hours, man, and fucking, and then I just got on the computer and just wrote all through the night. And I probably wrote one of the most powerful chapters I've ever written. And that was the second chapter of this book. And it was about my brother and what we went through. And, he was a really, really good person, man. Anytime you needed him, he would be there fucking yesterday. He'd give you the shirt off his back, his last dollar, but he couldn't help himself. And that's, I've helped so many people get clean off drugs and alcohol, but I couldn't help my own brother, because if somebody doesn't want to change, they're not going to change. You have to become done with the shit. And I was done with the shit. I mean, I survived numerous close calls with death, and then I relapsed again doing drugs in the 90s. And then I just said, you know what, dude? Right before, I think it was 2020, I just fucking stopped everything. And thank God I did, because like right the next year, I had a year sober off everything when I had to deal with my brother on 9/11. So like, this lady called me like, your brother's living in my attic in Staten Island. If you don't come and get him, he's going to be dead within the next like week. I didn't even recognize the dude, and I just dragged him fucking on the ferry, came across Staten Island, looking at the World Trade Center. He was crying, fucking thanking me. I said, I got you a flight out Puerto Rico and St. Thomas to the fucking drug rehab that our friend, the Morrisons, were like the toughest fucking Irish family on the Lower East Side. And they all got clean. And a couple of the brothers were down in St. Thomas and working with a rehab. So they were going to take him in, but he never made it, 9/11.
Wow. That's real heavy, and the timing's really interesting too. There's a lot of inspiration if anybody wants to pick up and check out Destroying Monsters or Meat is for Pussies, The PMA Effect, some books by John Joseph. And what is the next one that you're working on?
Just a book about punk, where it started. Okay. where it's going,
And
where
how
it's
it
been,
died. No.
how it fucking died like a dog in the fucking streets of fucking Bangladesh.
Man, yeah, it was a tough time for punk in the last few years, and I mean, like you said, even in the '90s and 2000s, it's totally changed. Got a little watered down, very commercialized. But like you also said, the spirit of punk is being yourself, truth, doing what's right in the face of the government telling you otherwise.
And
I
one of
don't
the
think it will
books
ever
that
die.
completely changed my life from Prabhupada
Oh, that's
was
the science of
Science of
self-realization.
Self-Realization. You can get this book anywhere. This is punk rock. Like when I got into Krishna in started in '81, it was just like nobody in punk. Yeah, you could. That's not the real Bhagavad Gita, man. That's you got to get the Macmillan version of the Gita. Yeah, that's perfect
Newsletter.
questions and perfect answers. That's a good book. But
I have the self-realization
gotta get the
somewhere.
72 Macmillan version because these bogus gurus in ISKCON in the Krishna movement edited Prabhupada's books and did all kinds of funky shit. Like,
Wait. So you're saying that as it is not the real?
no, that's a changed Bhagavad Gita.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
So tell me what.
you gotta read the original pre 72. I'll show you the cover. Because that's been changed. These fucking lowlifes in the movement changed Prabhupada's book.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Same ones that are doing all the crazy shit.
Yeah, because there's some corruption in that movement for sure, but they do teach a very pure teaching.
Who?
Well, I guess the Hare Krishna temple,
Yeah,
is that what
well,
it would
if
be?
they're not what they have is, you know, bogus gurus that are doing all kinds of bullshit. That's the original cover. That's the Bhagavad Gita. The 72 Macmillan. It needs to be the original Bhagavad Gita, not that book you have right there. That's been changed by this dude who's like just a fucking envious dude. And he's changing all the books and just like Prabhupada said, never change one period. And they went through changing the books and everything else. So you got to read the
Wow,
original Gita.
I didn't know that. I used to have a copy of that very one that you just showed me,
Yeah.
but I thought they were the same.
Yeah, they don't even sell them. Yeah, that's what everybody thinks. But you're not allowed to sell the original Gita in the temples in the Hare Krishna movement now. How
Wow,
is that even possible? It's
that's
all
crazy,
it's
bro.
all a scam, dude. They're all like you got gurus who are supposed to be in the renounced order of life with like tens and millions of dollars stashed away in bank accounts. They fucking the children, fucking dude, in the schools, there's all kinds of lawsuits and fucking just craziness, dude. I talk about it in the evolution of a Cro-Magnon. What they did to Prabhupada's movement. They even
Wow,
poisoned him. They isolated him and gave him cadmium and arsenic and all kinds of shit. And poisoned Prabhupada to get him out of the way. I mean,
wow.
if you saw Wild Wild Country, like that documentary about whatever the hell his name was, Rajneesh or whatever his name was, what went down in the Hare Krishna movement makes that look like the Boy Scouts.
Wow. Well, there's corruption everywhere, man. It is what it seems
Yeah,
like.
but when
And you
it's
got to,
spiritual corruption, when people are on the last leg of their life and they're looking for some alternative to help them in life, and you cheat them out of that, you're the lowest motherfucker. I'm sorry. You're worse than the fucking dude selling beat drugs on the corner of Avenue D. You are the lowest of the fucking low. Because thankfully, when I joined, I was in that position. I would not be alive right now. And luckily, I got to meet the devotees who were for Prabhupada and taught me about all the stuff and the original Gitas and the books and who the real guru is of the movement. Prabhupada never appointed any successors. They all fucking became gurus on their own. One of them got his head chopped off in a mall. He was selling had one of the biggest ecstasy rings in Europe, and he's banging other devotees. Why? Like, dude, the rape children, like, and then people are worshiping these fucking people. I'm like, dude, come on, man. And once I found out about what they were doing in '83, I've been fucking speaking about it ever since, letting people know. It's one thing to get cheated in the material world. When you get cheated in the spiritual, out of your spiritual life, dude, that's the worst. Plenty of wolves in sheep's clothing, and not just in the Hare Krishna movement, in every religion. Christianity, look at the church. Look at all these different religions. Islam, like that. They're all doing crazy shit because this is the Kali Yuga. And it says in the Bhagavatam, in the Kali Yuga, that people take irreligion to be religion, and the real religion they consider irreligion. Everything's ass backwards. So
yes. No, totally, brother. And I appreciate you for putting the truth out there into the world and helping people just sort of get a grasp on reality and spirituality. So thank you for your work, and thanks for your time today.
Hey, man, definitely, brother. I just did a big swim in the pool. I had to rush back up here, but glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, I do appreciate you, brother. All right. And then what's your website so people can go find your books?
JohnJosephDiscipline.com.
JohnJosephDiscipline.com. He's also on Instagram.
You can find me, John Joseph Discipline on Instagram, and fucking JJ cro-mag on Twitter. Just whatever, I'm out there.
Right on.
I'm out there doing, cracking jokes.
Sounds good, man. No, keep it up, and good luck on the training and the next book. And we can't wait to hear from you.
All right.
All right. Peace.